Have you ever bought yarn because somebody said that it was super soft, only to get home and find that it split like crazy and was just super annoying to work with? Yeah, me too. You too? Yeah, both of us. Yeah, we totally get it. And then you have to frog something, and then you have this yarn sitting in your stash. And this is one of the big reasons why our stash gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because we buy yarn that we end up not liking, and that's no good. So I set out, several months ago to create for myself a review system where I can test out different yarns. And because I have a really bad memory, I wanted to know, based on other yarns that I've used, how it rated. So I created a rating system. Okay, we created a rating system. And I think I finally gotten it perfected enough that I wanted to share it with you, because it seems to be working. It seems to be the system that I'm going to stick with for the long run. So if you've been a viewer of the channel for any length of time, you've probably seen my Crochet Swatch Saturdays and my yarn reviews. Those are one and the same. And you've seen how I go through and I assess, or I give up to 5 granny squares for each different rating. I thought maybe you'd like to see a little bit more information on how I came up with that rating system, or what really goes into the rating system. The system that I finally landed on is a 9 criteria system, so 45 points total, but then there's some bonus points that I can throw in, or warning points that I can deduct either way. And I want to kind of share with you what those 9 points are and how I go about deciding whether something should get 1 granny square or 5 granny squares. Okay, the first criteria that I always rate is feel. How does the yarn feel? And there are sort of 2 components to this. One is that initial, the first impression touch test. Like, does it wow me on first impression? But then I also take into account, how does it feel after I've worked with the swatches? I've gone through, I've done the single crochet, I've done the double crochet. Does it still feel amazing? Well, that's going to factor in. And the criteria that I use for the feel, this starts out at a 1, which is pretty abrasive. And this is the category where you're going to think about like your Red Heart scrubby yarns, things that are really almost truly just plastic, and there's just a major kind of abrasion there. Number 2 is going to be, it's more of a utility type yarn. I'm looking at my notes here. I'm going to put these up for you as well so you can see them as I'm going through. But number 2 is a utility yarn. So it's more of that rough and stiff. It's very utilitarian. So think about like your Lily Sugars and Creams, or your Red Heart, which to me, I value this based on how it feels when I'm working with it, not the long run. So something that might soften up over time doesn't count, because for me, this is about how it feels while I'm using the product, not how it's going to feel after it's been washed several times. Number 3 is your standard. It's not like amazingly soft, but it's also not unpleasant to work with. It's just kind of, it's tolerable. It's good for some garments that maybe are an outer layer, or household goods, those kind of things. Number 4 is going to be your comfy cozy. This is something that's going to be pleasant to wear. It feels good. It could be worn as a garment against the skin. It's nice and cozy. There's no scratchiness in this. And then 5 is like the dreamy cloud-like. Like this is just heaven. Heaven in a yarn. And there are even some acrylics that I put into this category, like the Halo, Karen Halo color phasing. Oh my gosh. I know not everybody loves that yarn, but for me, that is so soft. And there are alpacas. I think alpacas are incredible. There's just some yarns that just are so pleasant and so fun to work with because they just feel good. And if you're a sensory kind of person like I am, this one is like number one on the priority list. Okay, so category number 2 is our fiber content. And this is really determined by what makes up the fiber. Now, your criteria for this may be very different than mine because I'm automatically going to look at things like luxury content, merinos or cashmeres or alpacas as being higher up than something like an acrylic, which is a synthetic or a manufactured. Number 1 is your harsh synthetics and poorly processed fibers. Number 2 is your basic synthetic. So this is your low-cost acrylic or polyester, and it's going to maybe feel a little bit rougher. 3 are your workhorses, which are going to be your standard cottons and or higher quality acrylics. 4 are going to be your great natural fiber content or high-end synthetic blends. And 5 are your natural fibers like the merinos, the silks, the cashmeres, all of those kind of luxury type fibers. Again, your rating may be different than mine, and when I am going through reviewing a yarn, I really highly encourage you to go through that process yourself at the same time and determine how it fits for you, because I might score it different than you would score it, and that's totally okay. Color range, like I struggled with this one for a while because there are certain ones that I know are going to have, like acrylics tend to have a much wider color range than, say, maybe an alpaca. Usually alpacas are almost always kind of muted natural tones, although there are some dyed now and there are some blends. So I struggled, and I thought initially that I was going to rate this based on the category of yarn, and I just said, no, what? Everything else takes that into account. So this is just your basics. If there are more than 60 colorways, then it's a 5. More than 40 but less than 60 is a 4. More than 20 but less than 40 is a 3. More than 10 but less than 20 is a 2. And less than 10 colors is a 1. And let me tell you, so far, they've been all over the place on this. So I have rated some that are a 5 and some that are a 1. So it is kind of an interesting breakdown. Splitting. Yep, I totally get it. This is one of our major pet peeves. And of course, splitting is really going to be independent. It's going to be how do you crochet. It may have a factor on whether you're left-handed or right-handed. I still want to run a test on that. I need to figure out how to do that. But there's going to be a lot of variability. So I'm just doing this for me. If there are 0 splits I do 2 swatches. One is a single crochet and one is a double crochet, and I do 60 stitches for each swatch. If I get no splits in those 120 stitches, it's a 5. 1 to 3 splits is a 4. 4 to 8 is a 3. 9 to 15 is a 2. And 16 or more is a 1. Wow. Stitch definition. This again is going to be one that is very subjective, but I've tried to narrow it down and allow a little bit of consistency. 5 is super high definition, crisp, clear. It is ideal for cables and lace work. 4 is really sharp, very good clarity, minimal fuzz obscuring the work, but maybe there's just a hint of fuzz. I would say most cottons kind of fall into that category. 3 is average, standard. It looks good in basic stitches. There might be a little bit of a halo there, but it's, not a major big deal. 2 is very fuzzy or blurry with stitches blending together and the texture gets lost. And 1 is like your eyelash yarn where it's just not going to get seen. You got to use stitch markers to be able to see where your stitches are in order to determine that. 6 is the drape test, and this is kind of a gravity test. So basically what I do is I hold up the swatch, and I try and hold it by the end only. I try not to cheat and put an extra finger in there, but sometimes I've noticed I do a little bit of cheating there, so I got to get better at that. But 5 is totally liquid. It's just zero memory. It falls over. Think bamboos, right? These are like as liquid as it comes. 4 is flowing. It hangs with a soft kind of a U shape, but it moves pretty easily. 3 is structured. It holds a slight tent shape, and it bends, but it doesn't really flow. 2 is stiff. It barely dips when held horizontally. And 1 is rigid, where it stands up on its own. It's like a cardboard. So that's the drape test. 7 is the Froggability test. This is Farrah's favorite. It's otherwise known as the Ribbit test. Number 5, you could seamlessly rip this out using an electric winder and have no issues with any snags whatsoever. It's just zero resistance. 4 is that it's pretty smooth. There might be just a tiny bit of tension in there, but there's no knots. It's not going to snag at all. 3 is catchy, where it requires a little bit of a slower pull to it and a couple of gentle tugs here and there, but overall, it's not too much of a problem. 2 is like Velcro, where the fibers cling to each other and they require some manually pulling or manipulating of the yarn to get it to detangle. And then 1 is destructive, where the yarn's felted or it snaps and you have to cut it in order to get it to frog. There's just no frogging this. It's not going to happen. Number 8 is washability. This is a big one for me too, because I like things that are easy to take care of. And number 5 is my husband-friendly category. And I say this because my husband doesn't do laundry. So I call it the husband-friendly category, which means that you can throw it in the washer and throw it in the dryer and not worry an inch about it. And as a bonus, sometimes it gets softer with a little bit of extra washing. 4 is easy care, where you can machine wash it and lay it flat, or maybe it takes a little bit of extra care kind of in there, but overall it's pretty easy to care for. 3 is handle with care, where you can use the gentle cycle, but maybe not. Maybe it's not the best idea. 2 is hand wash only. It has a high risk of shrinking or color bleeding or losing its shape altogether. And 1 is high maintenance dry clean only or extremely fragile. And number 9 is my cost per yard. So this is a formula that I use to determine the value of the yarn. Is it a good value? Because yarn comes in all kinds of different prices and all kinds of different sizes. So figuring out the cost per yard is really the best way to determine the value. And the formula is basically the price divided by the total yards, and you get the price per yard. I think that's the way it works. Anyway, if it is under 2 cents per yard, this is a 5. Totally ultra budget. If it's 3 to 6 cents per yard, it is 4, which is the affordable category. 3 is the mid-range, 7 to 12 cents per yard. 2 is 13 to 25 cents per yard. And 1 is over 25 cents per yard. That's where we get pricey. Okay, so those are the 9 primary criteria. And then I have that criteria where I've got some warnings and concerns or some bonus ideas that don't necessarily fit into any of the other things. So maybe this is something that is only available online at a limited number of stores, and so it's really hard to come by. Or maybe it's something that is just has an incredible number of positive reviews, so I want to give it an extra bump up in that category. And so I just base this on gut instinct. It's really just my gut. What do I want to give this as a bonus or as a deduction? I take all of those numbers, add them up, and divide them by 9, and that's how I get the actual calculation, the score that I give it as a final number. And that's it. That's how I go through and rate the yarns. I try and be as objective as possible and keep it uniform across everything. This is the best sort of formula that I've found. But I want to know, is there a category that I've left out? Is there something that is way more important for you out of these 9 categories that I've already created? Or again, maybe that one that I haven't thought of yet. I'd love to hear from you on how you would change the score up or what you think is the best part of the scoring system, besides Farah over here, who she might get a big head if y'all tell her she's the best part. But anyway, I think it's a great system, and I'm going to stick with it for now. So next week, we will be back with our next review, and I hope you love it. Thanks so much. We will see you next week. Farah, frog us out of here.